month-long women's segment, Give to Gain, we speak with an award-winning artist, entrepreneur, and sustainability and gender advocate, the co-founder of social impact brands like EcoStore and Great Women, and founding trustee of the Philippine Women's Economic Network. As rising tensions in the Middle East prompt higher oil, renewing inflation pressures, how do we look into how women considered the most impacted and how they can cope? With us now is Jeannie Javelosa. Good having you here, Jeannie. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Hi, Kathy. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, it's unfortunate, uncertain times as we're talking, the most, especially for women. How does this kind of external shock, do you think, hit women first, not just as consumers, but as workers and entrepreneurs?
Yes, we're going to be seeing two angles of this because now with the Middle East war happening, you'll have our women who are mostly OFWs that are there. And you have the women locally here, where when I was listening to your macroeconomic discussions, you look at the numbers and all, but you see microeconomics with women is something they live with day to day. And you'll have initially the challenges of our women abroad right now in the Middle East, where you will have two angles. The economic side of it, where chances are their employees are going to be either tightening businesses or they may lose jobs, and the inability to be able to bring money back to the country. That's first. But second is also that of safe spaces, especially during war. There are gender-based violence that can happen in such spaces. So these two things are very crucial with our women there. No?
Indeed.
Now,
So how do we
yeah,
help, Jeannie? I mean, this is
yeah,
unprecedented, and we don't even know when it's
true.
going to end. We're faced with higher oil, and a lot of them wanting to be repatriated. Do they have
That's
jobs
true.
here? And if they
And
do
that's the
want to
scary
stay,
part.
are they
That's
safe?
the
So,
scary part.
yeah.
Because when they come home here, they may need to be reskilled, retooled with new knowledge, or may even have to take jobs that are lower than what they're doing right now. And I think the challenge there also is how about the women who are here themselves, which have going to be hit by the rising cost of gas, for example. No? So we're looking at how can we find good use for the GAD budget. There is a GAD budget, the country, which is 5% of the total annual budget of the country. How can this be properly used, specific now to the needs that are arising because of the war, the related needs?
So, what
Like,
kinds of
yeah.
conversations have you been having amongst women executives and leaders? And you take up the whole space there, the ecosystem of women leaders in corporate, as well as the small entrepreneurs, in order to make use and make the most out of this budget, given that resources are really going to be lacking once pump prices go up.
That's right. So an initial thing would be maybe to be able to give them some cash incentives, especially for the small micro entrepreneurs, because they will need capital. There should be a relook perhaps at the way loans are being given to women, especially on that level of the micros and the small, because it's impossible for them to be able to continue at the rate this is going. They are already struggling on that level. Can you imagine now with even more tightening and expenses going up, how their small businesses are going to be impacted? Plus, the women are in jobs that are often very vulnerable because they don't have the benefits. So when you see it from a bigger ecosystem of women where the large companies can take a look at how can they seriously purchase from women-owned companies, how can they bring the micro-entrepreneurial space and their businesses into the bigger supply chain? You know, sometimes while capital may not be directly given to the women, I think everybody should put on a different lens just to be able to help the angle of bringing women closer to the supply chain where they can do marketing and they can sell their products. But the challenge will really be for government when we have a lot of our OFWs coming back here, where a lot of training will happen. And how do we find the jobs? So one thing that the Phil Wen is trying to organize right now, and Phil Wen is a coalition of 5 different women organizations who each themselves have networks all over the country, is to be able to look at solid national programs that can integrate the gaps. There's so many gaps, right? So even if the private government is doing what it can, not just for women but for everybody, we at Philwen are looking with the lens of women to see how can we now work with government sharply, strongly, and smartly to make sure that we oversee likewise that budget of government going to the correct kinds of needs. If
Right.
it's a training, if it's perhaps capital support for our micro entrepreneurs, this needs to be looked at in a new manner. This budget is there.
It
We
is
need to look at it, yes.
yeah, a whole lot of tests as well as opportunity, I presume. And it's not just going to be Women's Month for sure, but for all of the months in the
all.
year. Please keep us up to speed on what happens then. Jeannie, thank you so
Yes,
much for
for
joining
sure.
us. Appreciate the insights. Jeannie
Thank you very
Javelosa
much.
of EcoStore, Great Women, and Philwen.